Shalom, shalom, wonderful friends. Great to be with you. Thank you so much for being here. Very excited for this session today. I can't believe we're at session 13 already. I've really enjoyed what we've covered together already, and I'm excited to dive into this. Let's start with a little poll question, get ourselves thinking here. Okay, I most commonly achieve flow during sport, meditation or prayer, conversation, or reading. Of course, there's many other options, but those are the options we are presented with from the Mount Sinai today. Um, where do you most experience flow? A state of deep connection, of losing yourself in the moment, in the connection. Okay, wow, totally spread out. 27% in sport, 36% in meditation or prayer, 18% in conversation, and 18% in reading. Okay, friends, so several sessions ago, we explored Martin Seligman's positive psychology and its emphasis on well-being. A remarkable extension of this field is Csikszentmihalyi, his concept of flow, a state of complete immersion where the hours fade, self-consciousness disappears, and the pursuit itself becomes a source of profound satisfaction. Flow taps into something fundamental about human nature to transcend the mundane and experience engagement in its purest, most raw form. When flow is reached successfully, being productive or reaching a goal is far from the mind. Instead, there's a joy of being fully present and where the process itself becomes the prize. Born in Budapest in 1934, Csikszentmihalyi early life was shaped by the turmoil of World War II and Soviet occupation. These hardships led him to question what makes life meaningful and fulfilling during his curiosity toward understanding the human psyche. After moving to the US, he became a leading figure in positive psychology, which we explored already, focusing on how people find joy through engagement. While Seligman explored happiness through broader frameworks of meaning and positive emotions, Csikszentmihalyi zeroed in on the immersive experience itself. For him, well-being wasn't just about feeling good, but about feeling absorbed in the present moment. Csikszentmihalyi's academic journey had modest beginnings. Coming from a family struggling financially, he dropped out of school. His path shifted when he attended a lecture by Carl Jung about UFO sightings. Doesn't that sound like something you'd like to do in your life? Attend a class by Carl Jung about UFO sightings? Yeah, me too. Which piqued his interest in altered states of consciousness and human experience. This sparked his lifelong fascination with peak experiences and the mental states that allow humans to achieve these peak experiences. Eventually, he became a professor at the University of Chicago and later a distinguished professor at Claremont Graduate University, earning recognition for his research on flow and how it unlocks human potential. Csikszentmihalyi's work on flow began with his observations of individuals deeply engaged in their activities, so absorbed that they lose track of time and performed with effortless concentration. Flow, he realized, allows people to lose their sense of themselves in front of others and dive fully into the moment, creating a state of unadulterated connection to the task at hand. He described this academic epiphany in the following way. I, I tried, I started trying to understand the roots of happiness, where in everyday life, in our normal experience, where do we really feel happy? I began to look at creative people, first artists and scientists, trying to understand what made them feel that it was worth essentially spending their life doing things for which many of them didn't expect either fame or fortune, but which made their life meaningful and worth doing. At its essence, flow represents a psychological circumstance characterized by living with profound intention. Csikszentmihalyi posits that the foundation of a satisfying life is rooted in the pursuit of experiences that enable individuals to become fully absorbed in the moment. Through this immersion, one discovers a more profound sense of purpose, where true happiness is derived not from external accomplishments, but from significant and engaging experiences. By examining the 9 elements that constitute the flow experience, we gain insight into how factors such as challenge, concentration, and the integration of action and awareness contribute to achieving this peak state of human potential. Here's how each element contributes to the magic of flow. Number 1, challenge, skill, balance. Flow emerges when there's a perfect equilibrium between the challenge posed by a task and the skills an individual possesses to tackle it. A task that is overly simplistic can lead to feelings of boredom. Boredom is going to be a separate session, by the way. While one that is excessively difficult can trigger anxiety or frustration. We've all had that experience at work that is too easy or work that is too hard, and the frustrations of both. True flow is found in that ideal zone where the task stretches the individual's capabilities just beyond their usual limits, resulting in an engaging and rewarding experience that promotes personal growth and motivation. Think about being challenged just at the right level. Feels so good. Okay, number 2, merging of action and awareness. In flow, the individual becomes so engrossed in the activity that there's no separation between action and thought. Everything happens almost instinctively, with no need for conscious deliberation. This unity of mind and body creates a sense of effortless progress, where each action flows seamlessly into the next. The person loses the sense of doing and simply is fully engrossed in the present moment. Right? If you can, I, I have a child who today actually is a preteen. I mean, she's 12 today, and she's our oldest. And I then have other younger kids, and the younger ones can play in a way where they're not aware of people watching them. They don't care what people think of them. And as you get a little older, you're very aware of people watching you and very concerned about outside perception. The way a 5-year-old plays is so different than how a 13-year-old plays. And okay, it's development, it's maturation, it's normal, it's natural, and it's sad. It's sad that we can't dance like a 5-year-old dances, right? As adults or pre-adults, we dance saying, "Am I dancing well? Does the other person think I'm dancing well? Do I look good? Am I dancing to the right rhythm? Like, how well am I dancing?" I mean, maybe you're on a different level than most, and you don't think about perceptions of your dance, right? That's not how my experience of 5-year-olds dance. They just dance, baby. They just move, right? And there's no concern or very little concern. In any case, merging of action and awareness. That's number 2. Let's go to number 3. Clarity of goals. The individual in flow knows exactly what needs to be achieved, which eliminates confusion or indecision. These goals don't need to be monumental. Sometimes they're simple, incremental objectives that create a continuous forward momentum. Clarity of purpose helps keep attention locked on the task and prevents distractions. Now, when I say clarity of goals, I don't mean like um, everything has metrics and benchmarks. Nothing against metrics and benchmarks, although I just wrote an article critiquing the Jewish Foundation world for being obsessed with metrics and benchmarks. Um, but clarity of goals, meaning I have a fundamental sense of purpose of what I'm trying to do. Yes, I'm going hiking without trying to achieve a goal, but like I have a sense of what I'm doing in my hike. I'm not just aimlessly wandering. Number four, immediate and unambiguous feedback. In a state of flow, feedback is immediate and clear, allowing the person to make constant adjustments to their actions. This feedback could be external, like a coach's comments or a score, or internal, such as a gut feeling or sensory feedback from the task itself. Right? I'm cooking and I'm immersed in my baking of this cake. Right. And I'm checking a timer. I'm not in a state of flow where I don't care about timers. Oh, I'm so flowed out that I don't care about timers. No, you're going to burn the cake. Right. You got to actually care about the timer. Right. But the timer doesn't set you off. Right. The feedback of the timer, or you're in a basketball game and you know you're down 3 points. Being down 3 points doesn't throw you out of the flow. It actually deepens the flow because you have a sense of where you're headed and where you are. It's about knowing instantly whether you're on the right track without needing to overthink or wait for approval. This real time feedback loops back into the experience, keeping the momentum of flow alive, right? I said to my kids a few days ago, I said, be the kid in class who nods their head when the teacher talks. Be that kid who, instead of looking like this in class, like just like bored out of your mind, be the kid who's like this. Your teacher will love you and you will make them feel so good if they feel there's one kid in class that's actually positively engaged to what they're saying, right? And do that in life, right? When we speak, many of us are more obsessed with the guy in back going like this than we are with the people in front going like this, right? But I try more and more to focus my mind on the people bobbing their heads rather than shaking their heads, right? But anyways, in conversation, somebody smiling to you or giving you positive feedback helps to have this feedback to be in the flow, right? You have a sense that things are working, things are okay. Okay, number five, concentration on the task at hand. Flow requires deep, undivided concentration. When in this state, all attention is focused solely on the task, and external distractions fall away. This heightened concentration allows for maximum efficiency and performance as the mind and body work together without interference from outside concerns. The ability to maintain such focused attention is often what distinguishes flow from ordinary everyday activities. So one of the reasons I can't have flow in a movie is because I cannot not check my phone in the movie. I actually feel like they put this new announcement before a movie starts in the movie theaters about not checking your phone, only to shame me, because as it's happening, I'm looking around being like, everyone's going to find out in 20 minutes that I'm going to check my phone to make sure everything's okay in the world. I cannot not check my phone in the movie. When I have an activity when I can't check my phone, that's amazing. I mean, for me, it's called Shabbat. That's a 25 hours of flow, right? Or some other experiences. Like if I do a HIT class, I used to bring my phone and they told me I couldn't, and I was so mad at them. I wanted to check my phone. And it ended up being such a great gift. If I went to a HIT class and they said that I couldn't have my phone, it like changed the whole experience. Okay, anyways, number six, paradox of control. Paradox of control. In flow, the individual feels a sense of control over the task. Yet, this control doesn't come from conscious effort or micromanagement. Instead, it's a kind of effortless control that stems from complete trust in one's skills and the natural unfolding of the activity. It's a paradox because in flow, control is maintained by relinquishing the need to control every detail. The person simply rides the wave of the experience, fully immersed without anxiety over the outcome. Okay, let me repeat that last line, really important. Riding the wave of experience, fully immersed without anxiety over the outcome, right? You're controlling what you can do, but not the outcome. Let's say I'm a surgeon and I'm in surgery, and yes, I'm leading the team. I'm in control of the experience, right? but there's a whole bunch of players and there's a whole bunch of outcomes beyond what I control, right? So there's a paradox there of me taking responsibility and control of this surgery, but also knowing that I'm relinquishing the control of every detail in this process. Or if you're managing any team in any process, it can be kind of something similar. Transformation of time, number 7. One of the most remarkable aspects of flow is how it alters the perception of time. In this state, time may either fly by or slow down dramatically. Minutes can feel like hours, or hours like minutes, as the person becomes so absorbed in the task that normal timekeeping becomes irrelevant. Present becomes more important than any projection into the future. Number 8, loss of self-consciousness. I talked about this earlier with dancing. Self-consciousness, the awareness of oneself as an object of others' attention, fades away in flow. The individual becomes so engaged with the task that they stop worrying about how they appear, what others might think, or even their own internal self-criticism. This liberation from self-awareness allows for a more authentic, uninhibited expression of skill, unencumbered by doubt or fear of judgment. Okay, and lastly, number 9, autotelic experience. Finally, the flow state is autotelic, which means the experience is intrinsically rewarding. The activity is undertaken not for some external gain like money or recognition, but for the sheer joy and satisfaction it brings in the moment. It's a self-contained experience where the process itself is the reward. This intrinsic motivation is what makes flow so fulfilling and why people often seek it out in creative or challenging endeavors. Okay, so friends, flow experiences can be divided into 2 main categories. The first is the optimal experience that occurs in specialized, high-skill context, such as when a musician, a surgeon, an athlete, a teacher is fully immersed in their craft. Think about someone skiing down a mountain. Think about a flute player playing the flute and losing themselves in it. Think about a meditator. In these moments, flow arises naturally as a byproduct of acute focus and engagement. Csikszentmihalyi writes that the best moments usually occur when a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. These peak experiences are exhilarating but often fleeting, emerging in scenarios where skill and purpose converge. Indeed, these experiences are typically limited to specific fields or activities where the conditions for flow are readily available. The second, more challenging category is finding flow in everyday life by bringing the same level of engagement and immersion to mundane tasks and responsibilities. Okay, so number 1 flow is very specific activities. I am baking a cake, I am playing the violin, I am performing surgery, I am water skiing, right? I'm dancing. Number 2 is, how can there be flow in everyday life activities? I'm doing the dishes, I'm mopping the floor, right? I'm taking a walk. While flow may seem possible only in demanding jobs or among high-level business executives, Csikszentmihalyi suggests that flow is universally applicable. Anyone can cultivate flow in their daily lives by approaching even mundane tasks with presence, curiosity, and a sense of challenge. Whether it's a routine job, cleaning the house, or interacting with colleagues, flow is a way to engage with the world and transform mundane moments into fulfilling and meaningful opportunities. One of the most profound aspects of flow is the sense of disillusion, temporary dissolving of the ego that occurs when a person becomes so immersed in an activity that they lose themselves in it. This loss of self is not just a byproduct of focus, but a key factor in why flow leads to such deep contentment. In the flow state, individuals are freed from the weight of self-consciousness, the constant concern of how they appear to others or how their actions measure up to expectations. According to Csikszentmihalyi, most enjoyable activities are not natural. They demand an effort that initially one is reluctant to make. But once the interaction starts to provide feedback to the person's skills, It usually begins to be intrinsically rewarding. Thus, when one is in a flow state, time seems to stretch or shrink. And usual anxieties that often distract us from the present moment fade away. In this space of pure engagement, we find a unique form of happiness that is not tied to external validation, but to the experience itself. A significant reason why many people feel dissatisfied in their daily lives is this persistent self-focus, worrying about societal standards or how others perceive us. Such a feeling leaves little room for true engagement in the present moment. Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow offers an antidote to this, providing an escape from self-consciousness and a pathway to a richer, more fulfilling life. It should be noted that a common critique of flow is that it emphasizes individual involvement and personal gratification, potentially neglecting broader social, economic, and cultural factors. While flow can lead to personal satisfaction, it may also encourage, a critic might say, self-centered pursuits at the expense of community obligations. Additionally, the pursuit of flow may be unattainable for those facing systemic barriers or lacking time and resources, obscuring important social issues like income inequality and collective welfare. Still, achieving flow requires conscious effort. Cultivating humility to release the ego, curiosity to draw us into the activity, and discipline to stay with challenging tasks long enough to enter the flow state. The experience of flow, as described by Csikszentmihalyi, speaks to deeper understanding of human happiness and fulfillment, which resonates with Jewish perspectives on spiritual growth. In Judaism, many teachings emphasize that what often makes us unhappy is our obsession with self-consciousness, our concern about how we appear to others, or whether we are succeeding in conventional terms. Jewish wisdom, particularly through Musar and Hasidic masters, encourages humility, curiosity, and discipline as pathways to shedding this self-centeredness. By immersing oneself in a task, whether it be Jewish learning, tefillah, or performing mitzvot, a person can lose the noise of self-doubt and find transcendent joy similar to the state of flow. One central example of this immersion in Jewish life is Torah lishma, learning Torah for its own sake. This principle can be found in the Talmud, as the verse says. Rabbi Bena'ah would say, anyone who engages Torah for its own sake, their Torah study will be an elixir of life for them. By looking holistically, this concept reflects the idea that engagement with sacred texts is a spiritual endeavor, not just an intellectual one, not tied to external goals or practical outcomes. Learning becomes a means of connecting with something much larger than oneself, aligning the learner with divine wisdom and centuries of Jewish tradition. Like flow, Torah lishma allows the individual to lose themselves in the joy and humility of the act, where time fades away and the act of learning itself becomes the ultimate reward. I now pause before I start reading a book, whether it is anything practical, political, theological, ethical, and say that this is such a sacred space, a space of learning, a space of a connection with the divine, just to be in that safe cocoon of a space that is intentionally for learning. And I think Judaism has really got this from the start, how central learning is to the human flow experience and actualization, and how much joy it can produce. That's why I'm here. That's one of the many reasons I'm here at VBM, because of the power of learning and what I think learning can do for the Jews and for the world. To have a lifelong commitment to learning. The experience of this immersion mirrors the spiritual connection found in other Jewish practices, such as tefillah and hitbodedut, prayer, and other forms of meditation, where the focus is on the presence and the act itself, rather than achieving any particular result. In prayer, especially in moments of kavanah, deep intention, or through meditative practices like devotion to the divine, devekut, the individual can transcend the distractions of daily life and experience a heightened state of awareness and connection with the divine. These moments of immersion are akin to the flow state, where the act itself becomes the fulfillment. Another important aspect of immersion in Judaism is the communal element. It's a funny picture, by the way. That's Dan Shapiro, who was Obama's, what was he? Ambassador? I think he was ambassador or something like that. Very high up U.S. representative. So he's reformed, but here he's in part of his role with Israel, engaging with the Haredi community for a moment in Talmud. The guy who's wearing the pin. Another important aspect of immersion in Judaism is the communal element. The task of learning Torah, engaging in prayer, or meditating is often done with the communal context, where individuals join as part of a larger whole. By the way, I had an interesting moment last night. There's a Hasidic man who knocked on our door the last 2 days, asking for money, and he's of the type who travels the world asking for tzedakah for himself. And the first day he knocked on the door, I told our family we were not going to answer the door. We're not going to answer the door because of some structural challenges that emerge with those who commit to daily Talmud study and not to working and feel that a life of asking for tzedakah without working is acceptable. And that we'd rather give to causes that will address these systemic challenges rather. And my 6-year-old protested really, really hard. He protested against this idea really hard. And the guy came back the next day to the door again. And the 6-year-old now was crying that how wrong my approach was to not be answering this door, and convinced me to answer the door. And and really had a really deep impact on our family culture and what we were doing. And even if we disagree theologically, religiously with this approach, that this is still a person at our door. And had this been a non-Jew knocking at the door, surely we would have got it. But what was the baggage of the Hasidic man at the door that we were not willing to, and so anyways, lots more to say there. But if you also had a reaction when you see a group of yeshivish men in a room studying, it's worth unpacking some of that reaction, right? That many of us have as pluralists or as liberal Jews, as to why, how we react to such images. The Talmud even praises those who go together to study Torah as having a particularly valuable experience because learning in chavruta, in partnership, enhances the spiritual journey, right? Those people, normally you think of a chavruta being across you, but actually in a lot of yeshivas, the chavruta is next to them rather than across from them, which is interesting. It's set up with benches along. If you go to most yeshivas, actually, it's like that. They're not across from you. Well, there's many different styles, but and different Hasidic customs on it. But you could see here they're next to each other rather than across from each other, which is interesting. It's through immersing oneself in these practices within a community creates a shared flow, a collective immersion where the focus is on something higher than any one person. This communal engagement elevates the experience, drawing everyone into a deeper connection with each other and with God. One of the things I love when we have a few hundred people in the room for a lecture is the buzz of that experience. But what I'd love to incorporate into that even more is chavruta, because the buzz of the Beit Midrash, beyond just a frontal experience, is where the magic can happen. And if you walk into a Beit Midrash, a traditional one, where there's, let's say, 1,000 people, it could be a women's seminary, it could be a men's yeshiva, right? But let's say there's 1,000 people in the room of people learning together separately, but it's a magical place that no other culture has, like Jews have. The flow, the buzz of this room. And I hope that we can continue at VBM to create the power of that buzz of a room full of learning. The ability to achieve a state of flow involves striking a harmonious balance between high performance and the cadence of daily existence. This entails identifying challenges that encourage personal growth while simultaneously cultivating an appreciation for the subtle and tranquil moments in life. The concept of flow should not be misconstrued as a means of evading reality or pursuing perpetual bliss. Rather, it represents a profound experience. It emphasizes the importance of deriving joy and contentment from both extraordinary and mundane aspects of life. This existence is characterized by an unconscious engagement with opportunities wherein individuals are fully immersed in their activities, often underestimating their own significance and the outcomes of their actions. The pursuit of altered states, however, is not confined to flow experiences alone. Many people, in their search for heightened states of awareness or deeper connection with the world around them, turn to various pathways, including drugs like mushrooms, LSD, and other psychedelics. These substances offer what some describe as mind-expanding experiences, allowing individuals to break free from conventional modes of thinking and feel more connected to the universe. According to Rabbi Josh Rose, the founder of CoLab, an expansive Jewish educational organization based in Portland, Oregon. Of course, it's Portland, Oregon. Yeah, Gary's smiling. He's got some family in Portland. If a religious tradition is concerned with human well-being, we have a responsibility to explore the possibilities for well-being and for healing. Psychedelics are often sought out for the same reasons for Csikszentmihalyi discusses in relation to flow: the desire to lose oneself in the moment, to transcend self-consciousness, and to experience an altered state where time seems irrelevant and the mind feels boundless. Actually, the Hammermans, you have family in Oregon too, right? Indeed, psychedelics have attracted interest among Jews exploring the connection between consciousness and spirituality. Jewish mystics, such as Kabbalists, historically documented visionary experiences through meditation as a means to deeper spiritual insight. Recently, Jewish intellectuals have begun examining parallels between psychedelics and Jewish spirituality, noting similar mystical experiences. These journeys, marked by unity and transcendence, echo traditional practices like intense Torah study, prayer, and Hasidic meditation. So for our next VBM lecture, we're all going to do LSD together at Temple Chai next Thursday at 7 p.m., followed by a dinner and a book signing. Jewish spirituality often embraces this state of awe, or yira, which can be understood as both fear and wonder. By the way, I finally convinced my wonderful wife and my kids chose. We are watching the Ten Commandments next weekend. That moment has finally come in our lives. So wish us luck in this 3.5-hour journey. And lots to say, but I don't want to derail us. Moments of radical amazement, such as the Israelites' experience at the Red Sea or the giving of commandments at Mount Sinai, reflect a profound sense of connection to something greater. These experiences humble us, dissolving the ego and reminding us that we're part of a larger whole. In this state, as Heschel and Buber teach, we become fully present in the moment, aligning with the divine in ways that transcend the material and transactional aspects of life. By the way, imagine if we thought of this Pesach Seder not as a class, but as a flow experience. If you're someone who's leading a Seder this year, and if assuming I'm leading a Seder, you're all invited. So reach out proactively if I haven't started planning anything yet. But if you're leading a Seder this year, think of it rather than a class that you're trying to teach. Think of it as a flow experience that you're trying to participate in. Phenomenology, the exploration of experience and consciousness, offers a profound lens through which we can comprehend our interactions with the world around us. The search for transcendent experience is not a modern phenomenon, although modernity has perhaps made it more urgent. In the 20th century, philosophers like William James examined religious and mystical experiences from a modern perspective, seeking to understand what happens in the human mind during these profound moments. James often explored how people across different traditions experienced the divine and how these experiences altered their perceptions of the world. For him, religious experience was not confined to dogma or ritual, but was a deeply personal and transformative encounter with something greater than oneself. Indeed, the perspective resonates with flow, where deep engagement in an activity allows individuals to move beyond self-awareness, time constraints, and external pressures. Similarly, Edmund Husserl, a founder of the phenomenology field, looks like a pretty happy guy you want to have a beer with, right? I mean, he's a philosopher after all, but looked at consciousness and subjective experience as key to understanding reality. Although not directly focused on religious experience, Husserl's work laid the groundwork for later thinkers who would explore the intersection of consciousness and spirituality. His ideas about the intentionality of consciousness, the way in which our thoughts and perceptions are always directed towards something, resonated with spiritual seekers who saw in his work a path to understanding how the mind engages with the divine. Husserl's phenomenology opened the door to viewing spiritual experience as something that could be examined scientifically, not just theologically. Influential Jewish philosophers such as Abraham Joshua Heschel and Martin Buber reflect similar sentiments in their spiritual insights. Heschel's idea of radical amazement, discovering the extraordinary within the mundane, parallels the flow experience as both advocate for finding joy in the process rather than fixating on results. Correspondingly, Buber's concept of the I-thou relationship emphasizes the profound selfless bonds we form with other people, echoing the way flow facilitates a release from self-consciousness during deep engagement in a task. Now, of course, there are dangers when we talk about relationships. The sexual revolution, for all its good and for all of its dangers, was, of course, connected to the spiritual revolutions of the 60s as well, where boundaries were crossed. And some of those boundary crossing was really productive for shattering dogmas in American society. And others were really dangerous and exploitative of people. Why should any of this matter to us on a daily basis? Well, at its core, flow is about balance, finding the sweet spot between a challenge that is difficult enough to engage us, but not so difficult that it overwhelms us. This balance is crucial because it allows us to stay immersed in the activity without becoming anxious or bored. However, this idea of balance can also reveal potential pitfalls. If someone becomes too focused on seeking out flow or peak experiences, they may struggle with the more routine or less stimulating parts of life. Not every moment can be a peak experience, and the constant pursuit of such highs could lead to dissatisfaction with the quieter, simpler moments that make up much of our daily existence. Right? I have a friend whose life was about peak experiences, and it went from enjoying a motorcycle to racing motorcycles, enjoying skiing to, what do you call it, heli-skiing, when you drop out of a helicopter on like back parts of mountains, doing like really dangerous things because he lived for peak experiences. And I would challenge that worldview as well. Okay, friends, to move to a conclusion. So should flow tie together to make meaning in our lives? The exploration of flow reveals a profound truth about human experience, that fulfillment is found not solely in the peaks of our achievements, but also in the everyday moments of engagement and presence psychologically. As Csikszentmihalyi renders this thought, he says, once the conditions are present, what you are doing becomes worth doing for its own sake. In our studies, we can measure this very precisely. You feel part of something larger. And once the conditions are present, what you are doing becomes worth doing for its own sake. Now, here's a great experiment. Let's say there's a mitzvah you plan to do today. Think about shifting it from moral responsibility to spiritual experience. For example, let's say you're going to visit somebody dying today, or you're going to just visit someone who's sick, or something like that, or visit someone who is isolated. As opposed to, I'm going to do it because I feel it's a mitzvah, it's the morally right thing to do, and now I'm just going to do it. Go lean into the experience, the flow of doing it, right? Not just to achieve doing it, but for being present joyfully in the moment of doing it. In this way, Csikszentmihalyi, his research challenges us to rethink how we approach our lives, urging us to seek out opportunities for immersion in all activities, no matter how mundane they may seem. By cultivating a mindset that embraces challenge, curiosity, and intentionality, we can transform the routine into something rich and meaningful. Flow becomes a philosophy for living that not only enhances our productivity, but also enriches our overall well-being, allowing us to derive joy and satisfaction from the process of simply being. The pursuit of achieving flow is intricately linked to a variety of philosophical and spiritual traditions, notably within Jewish thought, which underscores the significance of intrinsic motivation and the deep value found in engaging with sacred practices. Activities like Torah study, prayer, and other forms of meaningful involvement resonate with the core principles of flow, nurturing a sense of connection that surpasses individual existence. By incorporating these insights into our everyday lives, we have the power to develop a greater appreciation for our everyday experiences, transitioning from superficial interactions to a more comprehensive understanding of fulfillment. We refuse to accept the status quo if the status quo promotes moral inertia. The flow approach not only enriches our personal journeys, but also enhances the collective human experience, transforming the act of living into a profound source of joy and meaning. Okay, friends, let me pause there. I would love to hear from you on flow.
Good morning, everyone. Hey, David, I chatted with you. You didn't respond. I hope you got the nice weather that I ordered for you since you're visiting. He's visiting from St. Louis. He's in Phoenix. Anyway, I would think that their flow is important. I've never heard that terminology before, but I surely understand it. Is there not different types of flow? I mean, you mentioned surgery. You know, when I operate, I'm in my moment and time, and it's very interesting. It was noted to me years ago that when we first start operating, you know, I make an incision and we do the simple dissection, and when we really get to the meat of the procedure, you know, for most of us who operate, have no idea what's going on in the operating room. I don't care what music they're playing. I don't hear the anesthesia machine. I don't hear the conversations that are taking place in the room or whatever. I mean, I'm in time and space with that. And if there's something that breaks the flow, like I need an instrument or I need something else, it just kind of breaks the whole thing up. I mean, you just immediately get out of the flow. Compared to reading a book, like presently I'm reading Yitz Greenberg's book. You know, I like to read not novels, but, you know, Jewish perspectives of things. And when I read that book, I'm in a totally different flow. I'm kind of do much like what you just finalized the statement about thinking about time and space and how to improve the world, or how that affects me so I can improve myself or others. To me, I find that completely different types of flow. So I just thought, what's your thoughts on that?
Awesome. Good. I will throw that out for the group. Thank you, Gary, for opening that up for us and of your own experience and those two different types. And I'll open that up to the group. Here, let's go to Dr. Janie Heydrich.
Thank you for this morning. And Gary, that was really very much in line of what I was thinking. And I put it in the chat too. I think of the Buddhist meditation as leaving a consciousness or an awareness and becoming one with something else, whether it is your surroundings or whatever that is. And it seems like you do that in the theater, in the surgery, and you also do that when you're reading. There's so many ways of doing that in our lives, and I think those are, I hate to say the best, but they're such elevating experiences when you're out of yourself and you become one with something else. I also put one of my favorite expressions is meditation is not what you think. And there's so many
Awesome.
ways of, interpreting that. But thank you, Gary, and thank you, Rev.
Thank you, Janie. Thank you so much. I love that. That's awesome. Thank you. Yes, Stan or Cheryl, whichever one of you is ready to go.
Okay, I prefer the term focus because flowing is you're focusing on something, and I have a similar experience to Gary. Only in my profession, uh, when you have a witness on the witness stand or you're taking a deposition, you are focused on every single word that you're hearing, because every single word you're hearing and every single word you're saying becomes extremely important. Almost like when you read the Torah, you got to get every single word. I would also say reading Torah That's you get lost in that moment, because if you don't, you'll definitely make a mistake. If you do, if you do get lost, if you get lost, you'll absolutely make a mistake. If you don't get lost, you'll only probably make a mistake. But I think that would be it. I think spiritually, today's services are hard to focus on, as I would say. I had two experiences I can think of when we were in Israel, with the Federation mission. Um, Most of the people on the mission were not terribly literate as far as tefillot were concerned. And I had the honor to lead a minyan behind the wall.
The Rosen,
You're right, what they call
the gate where where it's
where men and women can be
egalitarian.
together. Okay.
Robinson.
And also at Yad Vashem. So, but normally it's hard to, you know, to have that focus experience, especially if you go to a service or you go to anything. But I was one of the ones I said sport, because I think it's very easy to just forget about everything and get wrapped up in sport at the end of a game or something like that. So I use the term focus.
Awesome. Focus. I love it. Yes. And that, yes, that need that, and whether it's in the legal field, we hadn't talked about the legal field, yes, or reading Torah, just the need to be in a state of focus. I love that. Who else wants to hop in here?
Rabbi Matthew.
Hi, Matthew.
So it's also the ability to turn flow on and off. I think of artists, and this is a crazy story. Many years ago, we lived in New York. We had a neighbor who gave piano concerts in his living room. He had them recorded. And one time we were going, and his son-in-law was the bartender. And then at intermission, his son-in-law then went to play the cello. And I'm sitting 12, 15 feet away from the bartender, who's also known as Yo-Yo Ma, the most famous cellist in the world. And his entire body changed. He was so focused and in the flow of performing for that half-hour piece that the world didn't exist. And when he was done, not only is his body changed, he went to a different state. And I think of it in terms of this lecture, the ability to get into the zone when you want. Maybe that's what distinguishes the great artists of the world, the great scholars. Not that they turn it on and off, but they know that they can do it. It was a fascinating experience. By the way, that's why everyone always showed up at Jack's house, because you never knew when Yo-Yo Ma was going to be there to pledge. The thought on the ability to control it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And it's a good challenge for each of us as well, not just to engage in multiple ways of being in the world. There are so many different ways to be in different places and different times. And to allow experiences to affect us rather than control them, to enter a flow where we let go a little bit and allow ourselves to be impacted. Hi, Cheryl. Thanks, Matthew.
To add on to what Matthew said, in when I was younger, I did a lot of theater. And to me, that was a total flow, because not only do you get into yourself, but you get into somebody else. You get, performing, when you're performing, you become someone else, depending upon what kind, if you're a dancer, if you're a musician, if you're an actor, you become someone else. So I agree with Matthew. It's the ability to get into, into that flow. My daughter and granddaughter just went to New York last week and saw Idina Menzel in her opening show. And it was her opening, and they had technical difficulties. And so they had to stop the show at one point. And she, after being in her total character on the stage, just came out and said, "Okay, everybody," she became Idina Menzel. Let's ask me any question you want. And then I think a performer has an ability to jump in and out of the flow like that. But I always think, when you mention flow, just to jump to another thing, when I think of Tai Chi and yoga and all of those things, which if you know the routine, then if you know a routine, it's kind of like a self-performance. You know a routine, or even something as mundane as getting ready for bed, let's say. Your routine is you get into the flow of doing something that your inner self knows and you're aware. You're self-aware. You're self-aware.
Awesome. Awesome. So cool. Thank you. Hi, Sarah. Thank you, Cheryl.
There we go. So, unlike you, my flow has always been dance. And the first time it really wasn't was in trying to learn Argentine tango. And how difficult it is because it's no longer just me. It's about two people being in a similar flow state and being able to read the music, the moment, everything about what's transpiring without words, just with motion. And I'm sure that's true for people who do contact improv and a lot of other things. But I can see when I am flowing in that moment and when I am working so hard to read the other person that I'm no longer fully present in that flow state. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is plateau. And George Leonard wrote a book long ago called Mastery, where he encourages people to love the plateau in our learning process. And I started thinking about that because I thought, well, in that state, you know what you already know. And if you can embrace the plateau and love it, then you can flow with what you do know rather than constantly worrying about not knowing enough and reaching further. So that was the other thing I just wanted to throw in the mix.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you so much, Sarah. Hi, David.
Hi. So I looked up how to say Csikszentmihalyi. And thank you for the lecture last week. That was fun to see people in person. That was cool. But yeah, I just love when you say lean into the experience. I don't think it's just the great artists. I think we all have flow moments, either reading or watching a movement, just letting go of ourselves. And I was trying to think, maybe when it's hard to be in the flow, when you don't feel good, when you're sick, and that's true. But even in those moments, that being sick or having great challenges kind of clarifies your mind and does change your perspectives and what you think is important. So I think flow, God gives this opportunity to flow for all of us, and it feels really good when it happens.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I think like someone going for dialysis can go into flow. I think someone going for chemotherapy can go into flow. I think there is illness, we should wish upon no one, but does provide new opportunities for this experience. So yeah, thank you for sharing that point as well. Stan and Cheryl, is that a new hand or an old hand? Okay. Steve, or Ken, or who else have we not heard from?
Okay.
Anyone else? Sorry, Cheryl?
I was just going to ask a question, or just
Great.
something that went through my mind when you were talking about
Great.
the Havruta method of studying,
Yeah.
and then praying, doing tefillot in services. So,
Yeah.
These past we attended an Orthodox service in Singapore, and of course, as a woman, I was in the secluded part, but it wasn't a communal experience. From my point of view, it wasn't a communal experience for the davening. It seemed like it was every man for himself, literally. So I wonder if the Havruta method of study is the way of establishing a community versus the actual prayer, which becomes totally individual as opposed to like how I do it, or Tzion as part of a congregation where there's
Right.
participation.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that's such an interesting point. On the one hand, I think the Orthodox community experiences themselves as more collective oriented than the liberal Jewish community because they're committed to daily minyan 3 times a day. That's just the norm of that community. On the other hand, if you go to a reform and some conservative services, or certainly Reconstructionist and Renewal, you will experience a prayer service where everyone is on the same page. Everyone is singing together
Literally.
every song, right? There's a cantor up front who is leading a song that everyone's participating in. It's a very collective experience. And that's what the high majority of an Orthodox prayer experience is not that. People are saying things on their own. And yes, there might be a Kedusha repetition in the Amidah where people have a brief moment to sing together. But by and large, people feel collectively connected, but are in their own prayer experience. And I think that that's an interesting insight, Cheryl, about that very different orientation towards prayer and what people are looking for. I think many liberal Jews talk about going to prayer community for community. I've never heard Orthodox Jews talking about going to pray for community, even though that might be kind of part of the subtext. I'm going there for a prayer experience. Yeah, there's community, right? But that's very different than going to sing with friends or sing with community. And so, yeah, I think it's one of the many major differences in those communities. And I think you're right. The Chavruta experience is much more of that. But the way the yeshiva is structured is you go to the class with the rabbi and they tell you what you're going to learn that day. Then you go to your chavruta for a few hours, and then you come back to that class to unpack what you and your chavruta did. And so in that experience, it's really the coming back where they have that community. They all come back and share what they learned, and they kind of go deeper together. That's kind of the most collective experience there. So I think that, Cheryl, that's a really interesting point. All right, Sarah, last comment from Sarah here.
Well, mine's also kind of a question of niguns. And a nigun takes
great.
me and feels like an incredible avenue into total flow.
Yes.
And it also becomes that communal flow.
Yes.
So it seems as if a nigun itself can be that doorway for us to join together in the individual communal experience.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. And I see Steve unmuted, so I'm going to go to Steve in a moment also. But that's a really important point. I think the nigun, the wordless melody where people can engage together, is one of the most powerful experiences of that. And it's also really inclusive for people who don't know Hebrew, for people to learn and join. And I would say that actually, I'll take it back. The Hasidic Tish, in the traditional world, the Hasidic Tish, where people come together and sing Nigunim, especially at Shalashutis, like the Shabbat afternoon experience, is probably the deepest collectivist experience, more than anything else. But yes, I thank you for sharing that. It's really powerful. Yeah, Steve, let's go to you.
Thank you. I'll make it very quick. I think that my sense of flow has been contingent on age and circumstance. I find that flow is much less now. There are many less avenues for flow now, partially because I'm losing my memory, and maybe my memory is preventing me from recalling the flows that I am experiencing. But I think it is contingent upon age and circumstance. Having experienced the isolation of illness in the past 4 months has really made concrete my sense of flow is with others. I don't have a personal sense of flow. When I'm conversing, when I'm exchanging even just pleasantries with other people, my neighbors, pickleball, my sense of flow is elevated tremendously. But isolation, I hate to say it, I have no sense of flow. It's kind of despairing.
Steve, thank you for sharing that, and much more to unpack about that experience and what it can look like for us together. And I'd love to unpack that with you. And I just gave you the bracha that in losing some memory, that you lose all your bad memories and hold on to all the good ones as your memory progresses rather than declines. I would say as your memory progresses, to remember the good. Have a beautiful day, everyone. See you soon.
Amen.
Amen.